Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 19th August 2020. The first article for discussion is Time for India and Nepal to Make Up. This article explains the perspective of Kathmandu on boundary dispute between these two countries. Recently, Nepal made cartographic changes, that is, changes to its map, and it was approved by Parliament with support of all political parties. The boundary issue has become more a nationalistic sentiment in Nepal today. In this article, the author is exploring and giving us the story on the side of the Nepal. Sugali Treaty of 1815, it has made the boundaries clear between these two countries. According to Nepal, the Raja of Nepal renounced land west to the upstream of Kali. The word important is upstream of Kali. Let us take point A, point B. India considers point A as the start of the Kali River, and west to it, that is point B, is considered as the start of Kali River by the Nepal. So, because of this varied interpretation, we have difference of opinion over here. Second, India and Nepal agreed long back in 1997 itself there is territorial dispute between the two countries. In spite of this, India inaugurated a road to Lipu Lake and also released maps. So, what Nepal is trying to say, India is the first country to release the maps claiming this territory as part of it, in spite of being a disputed territory agreed by both the countries. That is the Nepal version. Mr. KP Sharma Oli, Prime Minister of Nepal, has aggravated the situation further, saying that the real Ayodhya is in Nepal, etc. In this context, what author is trying to say is both countries have to work further to deteriorate the tensions which are existing as of now. If not, it is going to damage both the countries socially, culturally, and especially Nepal economically. You know that Nepal is a landlocked country and it needs port assistance from India. So, Nepal economic situation may get worse. India and Nepal relations are described as Beti Roti Ka Rishta. It means many of the people who live in Terai region on the side of Nepal, they have matrimonial alliances with the people in states of Bihar and UP. So that's why it is called Beti Karista. Why it is called Roti Karista? We have open land border between Nepal and India. So many Nepalese they come to India and work over here. And similarly, many of the Indians in the border districts also go to Nepal and work over there. But politically, if observed, the Terai region do not have much of political voice. Terai region is most populated, but the people from the hill region, these have got the major political voice. Kathmandu being the seat of power for long, so they have got greater say in the politics in Nepal. When the provinces are divided in Nepal as per the new constitution, provincial autonomy and the issues related to it also have become controversial. So these are the points which you need to remember now. The next article is troubled waters. So this is about the situation which is erupting in the eastern Mediterranean. You need to know eastern Mediterranean consists of many of the islands which are under the control of Greece, Turkey. So due to existence of multiple small islands, clearly defining the maritime boundary is very difficult. And second, now it is learned that there are many oil reserves in this particular region. So, in the midst of this, there is a crisis going on in the eastern Mediterranean. So, Greece and Turkey are claiming sovereignty and maritime rights over many of the territories over there. Recently, Turkey sent an exploration vessel accompanied by its navy into these disputed waters. Then, Greece being EU member, France came into immediate rescue of Greece. But France sent counter forces to Turkey's navy into that water. So EU, its allies in West Asia, that is Israel, UAE, and North Africa, that is Egypt, They all plan to build a pipeline from eastern Mediterranean to European mainland. What is the importance of this pipeline? It decreases the European dependency on Russian energy. So, Europe is highly dependent on the Russian gas to keep itself warm during winters. In this context, if the dependency on Russia is not decreased, their sovereignty may get undermined. That's why they want to build a pipeline from the eastern Mediterranean to the mainland. That is their major objective. But they want to keep the Turkey out of it. On the eastern Mediterranean, most of the coast belongs to Turkey. So, by taking the Turkey away, it is unwise to build such a big pipeline. In the meanwhile, what the Turkey is doing, it is trying to create an exclusive economic zone with the help of Libya. From the south of Turkey to the north of Libya, it has declared it as its exclusive economic zone. To counter this, what Greece did, Greece has made an exclusive economic zone with the Egypt. So Greece and Egypt made one exclusive economic zone. Turkey and Libya made one exclusive economic zone. And the territories under this exclusive economic zone overlap with each other. So when Turkey sent the ship, obviously that has become a controversy over here. Hope you have understood the problem here. Today, if we observe, some alliances are developing in European Union. On one side, it is Greece, Cyprus, Italy, and France. On the other side, we have Turkey. So the first alliance is backed by Egypt, Israel, and UAE. So the way forward is Europe, it wants to have the gas from Mediterranean. Open conflict with Turkey need to be avoided. Similarly, Turkey bullying the smaller countries such as Greece, Cyprus, etc. have to be avoided. Today, it is also getting reflected in West Asia, that is Middle East. Turkey is more and more aligning with Iran, and UAE, Saudi Arabia. These are developing themselves into a kind of another Arab alliance. So we see new geopolitics are developing in Europe and also Middle East. This you need to keep very focused, because a question is expected in this particular area in your prelims and also in your mains. What is the impact it can create on India? That is the dimension which you need to think about. Today, Saudi and Pakistan have a lot of conflict with each other because of foreign minister of Pakistan has used or else gave a loose tongue on Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia did not support Pakistan on repeal of this Article 370 in Kashmir. So the Pakistan is moving away from the Arab countries, which are its major sources of finances before, and towards China. So that's why there is a lot of reshaping is happening in that particular region. Last you saw that UAE also has kept the diplomatic ties with Israel. So Israel is being more accepted in the Arab world, and Palestine is being supported today by Iran and the Turkey. So these all points you need to remember together. Next is empowered circles, impatience, and injustice. In India, police are the most criticized. They are criticized as corrupt, or incompetent, or many other things. In spite of these things, whenever a suspect is caught by the police in a prominent case, the people demand for immediate justice rather than giving a chance for due process of law. How shall we explain this? Here, the author is trying to say that impatience and added to that seeing the things in a binary are the major reason. What do we mean by seeing the things in binary is black and white, like and dislike. So we don't see the middle path. Why we started seeing the things in binary in spite of being educated that there can be many other choices in between? The author says increased influence of social media and market economy, especially neoliberal market economy, are the major reasons why people are developing this impatience and seeing the things in binary and feeling self-righteous about their own decisions. This is what author emphasizes. To explain this clearly, I will tell this way. When you see some message in a Facebook and you like that, And you see more of the messages like that. So this is called as closed loop circularity. So your opinions and whatever the decisions you make, they get reinforced because the similar kind of messages you are getting. You don't see the other's perspective. Then your self-righteousness is expected to deepen. That is what I'm trying to say here. Next is aiming to decolonize through colonial logic. What is the colonial logic over here? It is through oppression, non consultation, and imposition of thoughts of a foreign government on Indians. In this context, Ministry of Home Affairs appointed a committee to reform criminal laws in India. What is its objective? It is to undo the colonial foundations of criminal law. But is it actively consulting with the stakeholders is the question. So the colonial logic of non-consultation and non-participation and non-representation is continuing in this committee's work. That is what is the author's major criticism. What the author identifies here, much of the consultation is happening on websites, on internet. In this case, how many people have access to internet in India? And second, among the men and women, men have greater access. Urban India has the greater access. In this case, the digital divide is also converting into democratic divide. Added to that, the consultation is in English. In a diverse country such as India, English is spoken hardly by some 10% population, then language barriers are bound to exist. And these consultations are happening in midst of COVID-19. You know, all the people are focused on saving their health. In this context, to what extent people can spend their time on giving a rational opinion? And the time allowed for consultation is hardly 3 months of time. An entire committee itself is non-representative. Who are getting more affected with the criminal law? Let us take who are getting criminalized for centuries together. So let's take certain tribal sections, Dalits, minorities. All these sections gets most affected. Do all these sections have right representation on this committee? No. Geographically also, the North Indian people make the majority of this particular committee. It is better to distribute north, south, east, west, everyone, northeast, everyone to be the part of that particular committee. Because the crime is not uniform in India, crime varies from region to region. Specifically, if you observe crime against women, it is different in Punjab and Haryana. When it comes to South India, it is different. Let's take Devadasi system exists in South India. Female feticide exists in majorly in these states. So that's why crime is diverse. And crime affects different sections of the society differently. So criminal law also affects them differently. So what we need to have is a wider consultation and wider representation in the committee. That is the essence of this article. The next article is erring on the side of caution. This article is about rules related to PCPNDT Act. So Preconception Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, that is PCPNDT Act. You know, female feticide is a major crime in many of the states in India. So the sex selective abortions, these are the major reason for decreasing sex ratio in this country. This law is implemented through certain rules. In midst of COVID-19, these rules are getting diluted. So what are the rules? One, renewal of registration once in 5 years, it is kept in abeyance. And submission of monthly records from labs to concerned authority of the state government. Third, every state has to send a quarterly report to the center. So these three have to be implemented. When Supreme Court was asked to dilute various errors or else relax various errors committed to be considered as clerical errors and be exempted from criminal offense, the Supreme Court said nothing doing. So this can become a loophole and they can escape themselves from this particular action saying that it is a clerical error. Why the Supreme Court was so strict? It wants to ensure that the girl children of this country be protected. Next is resurrecting right to know. A high level committee was appointed by a retired judge in Assam. His mandate is to implement Clause 6 of Assam Accord, and to define Assamese people, who constitute Assamese people. Though he gave the report, it was not published by Home Ministry. All Assam Students Union has declared it into open. Now, the actions of all Assam Union, do they come as a offence under Official Secrets Act or not? So in this case, Mr. Madan P. Lokur, the former judge of Supreme Court, what he says is, Supreme Court from time to time, it always stood for the right to know of the people, transparency in the affairs of the government. So when the government did not declare it and all Assam Student Union made it open, so filing a case under Official Secrets Act as a threat to national security is very remote. The case may not stand in Supreme Court. In this case, we need to remember various Supreme Court judgments with regard to transparency and right to information. The first one is State of UP versus Rajnarayan, SP Gupta versus President of India, and finally Yashwant Sinha versus CBI. In all these cases, the Supreme Court stood for the people's right to know. That is the point we need to remember. The next is China's provocation is a diversion. So this is by an expelled China Communist Party of China's member and former Central Party School's principal Kai Zha's opinion. What she says is Xi Jinping abolished term limits in 2018. It means he can be a president for lifetime. So this made all the authority in China concentrated in one single individual. This kind of strongmanship, this kind of concentration of authority and centralization of decision making goes against the philosophy of accountability. So that is what she stresses on. Today we have issues with China, and China is trying to escalate the tensions further and further across the border. And China also very secretive on pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and it has spread to all the countries and devastated the economies across the world. And then the rough weathers with USA. All she says have to be seen as diversionary tactics of Mr. Xi Jinping because he wants to strengthen his own position in Communist Party of China. He wants to keep the Chinese away from the domestic issues and raise that nationalistic fervor to keep his authority intact. That's how she is trying to say. Next is no need to audit PM CARES. So PM CARES is one thing. National Disaster Management Fund, this is another thing. And the third thing is Prime Minister National Emergency Fund. These are the three different funds. So if you talk about NDRF, National Disaster Response Fund, it has got legality under Disaster Management Act 2005. And the second thing is PM CARES Fund do not have any legal position. It is a public trust established with the Prime Minister as the head. And second is the Prime Minister's Relief Fund, Emergency Relief Fund. It has come in the context of partition to help the people who have come from Pakistan. So in this case, the PM CARES and Prime Minister Relief Fund, these are audited by an independent auditor. But NDRF, Disaster Response Fund, this will be audited by the CAG and it has a statutory backing. You know that when there is a statutory backing and there is a CAG audit, the accountability of the spending of the funds from that fund will be much higher. So that's why the matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court today said that this PM CARES fund is a public charitable trust and the donations received on that fund are purely voluntary. So it need not be brought under NDRF. The funds need not be transferred to NDRF. And second is, a CAG audit is not necessary. Second thing is, a new national disaster management plan is required for COVID-19. They wanted, or petitioners wanted support of the Supreme Court. It also dismissed that. Now, minimum standards of relief for COVID-19. You know, many of the workers, especially migrant workers, are worried that they are not getting any relief from government. And poor and marginalized, their joblessness is increasing, unemployment is increasing. Here, the petitioners have asked for define the minimum standards of support the government has to give to these people. In this case, what the Supreme Court said is under Section 12 of the Disaster Management Act 2005, whatever the standards which are existing, they are more than sufficient. In that way, whatever the requests of the petitioners are totally been dismissed. Curbs on China's FDI hit GM car plant sale. You know that in the midst of COVID 19, the market capitalization of many of the companies in India have come down. So, in the banking sector and other critical sectors, if FDI is allowed, it can lead to dilution of the Indians' role or Indian nationals' role in the management of their companies. Fearing that, government stated it will observe the issues on a case by case basis, or donations or investments on a case by case basis. In this context, General Motors India, it wanted to sell its plant, and the present regulatory restrictions did not make the deal move forward. Next is no-go forests approved for mining. You know, mining needs environmental impact assessment. The coal blocking needs or allocation of the coal blocks need clearing of the forests. And government of India is liberally allocating the coal blocks without bringing the previous allocations into production. More than 67% of the mines auctioned since 2015 were not operational till date. So, what the author is trying to say over here is let us make existing cleared auctioned coal blocks into operation first before allowing for new auctions. That is what Center for Science and Environment is talking about. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much.